Guys, happy to see you again. Oh my goodness, look at this. This is what happens when there's no haircuts in quarantine. Anyway, here we are for U.S. history. So log into your Office 365, always step one. If you guys don't know, Outlook, this one, I don't know if it can move. There we go. This is your email. Please check your email. Tell your friends to check their email. All right, go to Teams, click. I already have mine open. Go to Teams, go to U.S. history. You guys know how to do this part. Go to U.S. history, go to Teams, go to U.S. history, go to your class notebook, and this is the title. It'll be May 26th through the 29th, Civil Rights, number 2. There we go. So, starting off with today, here's the video, and then you also have a video to watch about the Greensboro sit-ins. So, we're talking about civil rights, and we skipped way far forward in history, and we are in the 1960s when African Americans and people helping and working with African Americans were trying to gain more rights, more allowances, more abilities to be safe and be treated fairly in society, right? Unfortunately, even in the 1960s, which was only 50 years ago, the African Americans were treated horribly. This was that separate but equal idea, right? Remember, we studied that throughout, where there was separate water fountains and separate schools and things like that. It changed over time a bit. By the time of the 60s, schools were integrated, but still there was a lot of violence towards African Americans. So, your job on this one is your objective to answer this question over the period of this week. What made nonviolent protests effective, right? What made them work during the civil rights movement? Okay. Why was nonviolence working better than violence? Okay. I want you to really think about that. Why? For African Americans wanting more rights in America, why was nonviolence working better than violence? You could probably think of an answer right now, but we're going to use the next couple days for you to learn more and kind of build more evidence to your idea. Okay, so here's your little introduction. We're going to learn about the Greensboro sit-in protest. So one of the nonviolent forms of protest used during the civil rights movement in America was sit-ins. Here's a sit-in. African Americans would sit in physical spaces that were usually segregated, demanding integration and equal treatment, right? They would sit in places they're not allowed to be, right? Maybe in a bus that they're not allowed to be in, maybe in a diner, like a restaurant that they're not allowed to be in, right? And they would just sit. Not yelling, not shouting, not throwing things, just sit. The most famous of these is the sit-in staged by college students in Greensboro, North Carolina. Okay, this video, I will put it right up here for you. Okay, so they went to a lunch counter, which is like a restaurant where you get lunch, and they sat. Yeah, it's crazy. You have to watch the videos. So, then you have questions, right? Before the sit-in protests, who was allowed to sit at the Woolworth lunch counter? Who wasn't allowed to sit at the lunch counter? I bet you can guess already. Why did the students choose to stage their protest in that particular restaurant? On what day did they start? What hypocrisy did the students hope to highlight by staging the protest, right? What was their, how to explain hypocrisy? Like, if I was to say, here's a good one, right? You guys are in class, right? And you guys are starting to get really loud. You're really loud and you're yelling and all this and all this. And all of a sudden I start screaming, "Stop making noise!" It's like, well, I made noise to make you stop making noise, right? So maybe I could have said it quieter. That's hypocrisy, right? It's when you tell someone to not do something while you're doing something. Yeah. So what part of that did they hope to highlight or bring awareness to show? Did the media, meaning the news and stuff like that, cover the protest? Did they talk about it on the news? Do you think that helped spread it to the other 54 cities in the South? It spread. Why or why not? How long did it take for it to work, to succeed? And then here's a little quote. Franklin McCann says, As time went on, it stopped to matter because you could come in around lunchtime and you could see the alternating, almost black, white patrons. Nobody paid much attention to it. And you ask yourself, what was all the fuss about in the first place? So what does he mean by that? Okay. All right, watch the video, answer those questions, and you're good to go for Tuesday. And then you move on to the next day. All right, guys, have fun. Let me know if you have questions.